Mama. Welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and this podcast exists to help scholarly mamas like you to achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters most. Here, we're changing the overwhelm, juggle, struggle narrative around what it means to be a mama on an academic journey to one of empowerment, fulfillment, and purposeful success. So how do we successfully navigate these journeys? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Let's begin by saying yes to creating a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, because that's when we truly become purposefully whole. So get ready for the most non-traditional, unconventional, and revolutionary approach to PhD motherhood, because one thing I have learned over my many years of experience on this journey is that if you want something different, you have to do something different. But you must be brave enough to think differently first. So, Mama, are you in? Fabulous! Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. If only I could just wake up at 4 a.m. If only I could just time block everything. If only I could just find the right morning routine. Does any of this sound familiar? I used to feel exactly the same way. But what if I told you that finishing your PhD well isn't hidden in another productivity hack or another time management strategy? Now, don't get me wrong, time management and productivity are important. But when you're in the thick of overwhelm, when you are feeling like you're going nowhere fast, and obviously I am speaking here from the perspective of a scholarly mama, but when you feel like this, these kind of masculine energy approaches alone are not going to be your solution to finishing well. There's a deeper issue that we need to address. So let's get into it. First of all, before we do, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. It is my absolute honor to have you here and to have you tune into this podcast every week. I do not take that for granted at all. So thank you so much for being here. If you would be so kind as to leave a kind review at the end of this podcast, whatever podcast app you listen to this on, leave a short, kind review so that other people learn about this podcast and they can benefit from it as well. Thank you in advance. So let's get into the episode. So let me paint you a picture. I remember during my PhD, I was presenting at a departmental seminar when I started to get messages flooding in. One son's school needed something urgent. Another had a fever. Everything was going down at once. And you know what? In that moment, there's no productivity app in the world that could have helped me navigate that situation with grace. Here's the truth that nobody's talking about. The reason you are struggling, mama, isn't because you don't know how you can be more productive. You already know how to be productive. Otherwise, you would not have made it this far. You are on a PhD journey. That is no easy feat. The real challenge here is that you're trying to fit your beautiful, messy mama life into a PhD academic system that wasn't really designed for mamas. It's a system built on masculine energy, so linear progress, rigid structures, and constant output. And there's a constant inner tug within you for something different, for a new approach, for something new. But here's the kicker. This is something that you've known all along. You just haven't had the space to really embrace it. So today we're going to flip that script on everything that you have been told about productivity and success in academia. Because what you need isn't just another color-coded schedule or time blocking technique. Those things are really important and they have helped me as well along my journey. But those things on their own will never bring you purposeful success. What you actually need is permission to embrace your feminine energy, to embrace your maternal identity, and a completely different approach to success. And that's what we're going to get into today. You know, as a mama of 3 boys and obviously having done a PhD myself and 4 other degrees before the PhD, I understand exactly where you are. I know that feeling of wanting more, wanting something different, you know, feeling completely capable because you're not incapable of doing this. I'm going to say that again for all the mamas in the back. You are not incapable of doing your PhD and finishing it to become Dr. Fill in the blanks. There have been many people long before us who have done exactly that, right? But what I want to get into today is how you can finish your PhD well, the feminine way, right? So not putting all of your energy into all the newest productivity hacks and tips and tricks. And honestly, like I'm so over it, but really getting to the root of the matter here for people like us, for people like mamas who are juggling many hats and navigating, you know, an academic PhD life with kids in tow. Let's get into what you actually need instead. So the first thing that you need, instead of more productivity hacks and tips and tricks, is you need a new definition of progress. This was such a light bulb moment for me, and it's so crucial for you to understand this deeply. So let me share a story about my sons learning to ride their bicycles. My dad taught me to ride when I was really young, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Barbados riding all around with my cousins. Oh, such wonderful memories. So many adventures we went on. So many memories of cycling up and down the roads with them. But watching my own sons learn to ride brought me right back to what it actually means to be in that position where you are learning new skills or new approach, a new practice. So some days they would zoom ahead, finding their balance and flow and, you know, moving forward with confidence. Other days they'll need to go back to their training wheels because they weren't quite ready to maintain that balance that they'd actually found before. But here's the beautiful thing. They still found their way back. They still managed to let go of those training wheels and become confident riders. Your PhD journey with kids is exactly like this, right? There will be days when you're on an amazing roll, mama. The words are flowing, everything's clicking. Logistically, everything is falling into place, and you feel like you are making substantial progress. But then there are days where other priorities take center stage and progress feels quote unquote slower. But here is the truth bomb. Both types of progress are equally valid. When you are navigating this journey with kids in tow, you know, you kind of have to get comfortable with both of these types of progress. And that is what I mean by really understanding and appreciating a new way, a new perspective on progress. And that's, for me, that's what it looks like when you are embracing your feminine energy, honoring those natural ebbs and flows, rather than trying to force this constant forward momentum. Obviously, yes, momentum has its place. And by the way, I remember hearing somebody that I listened to online say this, which I thought was so profound. They said, you cannot actually have momentum without inertia. And if you listen to my last episode last week, I talked about how I was in this state of inertia. And I liken that to when you're trying to move a plane and it has to go back and then down the runway very slow, very sluggishly. And then you get to build that momentum and you reach a point of no return and you can then take off and fly, right? So this is what I mean. There are moments of inertia along this journey when you're navigating it with kids in tow. Can you embrace those moments of inertia? Can you embrace those days where progress feels slow, but knowing full well that you will find your stride again and you will get to that point of momentum eventually get to that point of no return where you are ready to submit your thesis. You've done the work, you've put in the hours, you've done the writing, you are ready to fly. And so really just embracing that new perspective when it comes to progress is what you actually need, and not just more productivity hacks and tips and tools to actually finish well. The second thing you need, rather than just more productivity hacks, is permission to work in the margins. This is so important. So let me tell you about my love for margin notes. So when I was editing my thesis, and I do this, to be honest, with any paper I'm reading or any document I'm reading, I would scribble all over the margins of my printed pages. So I still have a printed copy of my thesis that I actually used for my Viva, where I was scribbling all over that thesis. I've got Post-its, I've got all these handwritten notes in the margins. And that really helped me because as I said, even now when I'm reading papers or I'm, reading some important document for work or something like that, those margins are my favorite places to really scribble and take notes. And I guess maybe as a visual learner, those margin notes really were what helped me to remember the key points. So crucially, when I was preparing for my Viva, those little margin notes, I think, were so vital to my success. I passed my Viva really spectacularly, did not have any compulsory amendments for my thesis. And that performance I was able to deliver for my Viva and really defend my thesis, a lot of that came down to those little margin notes that I wrote to help me explain concepts, defend decisions, and really remember the content of my thesis. And so just like those little margin notes were vital to my success in my Viva, and I have some episodes, if you head back over to episodes 24 and 25, I talk about my Viva preparations and how I was able to nail my PhD Viva. And so really it's about those margins, right? Writing, scribbling notes, writing, little points to remember. And just as those margin notes were important for helping me to really effectively defend my thesis, we need to also embrace working in the margins of scholarly mama life too. So this may mean that, there are times where you are using little pockets of time to read a paper or touch up some references or dictate notes to yourself or outline a new chapter or, just using those precious minutes that you've got in between your real life. Those are the little times. Yes, you're not sort of sitting down and writing, 5,000 words in one go, but you are utilizing the time to really embrace those margins. You are really embracing those margins of time around all the other things that you're doing. And for me, this is one of the things that really helped me as well. When I was in the thick of writing up my thesis, I talked about that in my Operation PhD thesis episode last week, where I shared how I got from feeling completely overwhelmed and ready to quit because what I really was afraid of whether I would be able to finish well and finish without sacrificing my family life, a life that I cared very deeply about. So yeah, I was scared. I was scared that I wouldn't be able to do this. I was scared of whether I was going to be able to finish my thesis in the time that I had while I was juggling all the other things in the background. And so that system really helped me. And it doesn't just focus on productivity because, again, we as scholarly mamas need more than just productivity hacks. We need a whole new approach that works for us and allows us to finish well. So just going back to what I was mentioning about working in the margins is utilizing those little creaks and crevices of time around major events, because those are little golden opportunities. They're tiny nuggets of time, but they could be quite impactful in the grand scheme of things. Maybe you have a 9-to-5 job, or perhaps you're juggling multiple school runs like I am. Whatever your situation, these little margins is where the magic is going to happen. So the key is to not see these little chunks of time as being less valuable than perhaps long, uninterrupted periods of work, because this is where the feminine energy really shines, in our ability to make use of natural rhythms rather than forcing ourselves into rigid time blocks no matter what. That doesn't work for scholarly mamas. Okay, so the fourth thing that we actually need as scholarly mamas instead of more productivity hacks is radical self-compassion. Oh, mama, this one is deep. When I say radical self-compassion, I'm not talking about, the kind of fluffy self-care that just scratches the surface, going to the spa or going to get your nails done. That's all great. And, do that if it helps. But what I'm talking about is the kind of self-compassion that really stands tall when academic guilt comes knocking at your door, because believe me, that academic guilt is going to come. So I'm talking about the type of self-compassion that says, yep, I'm going to send my apologies to the departmental party so that I can attend my son's school play. And that doesn't make me any less committed to my research. It's the type of self-compassion that says, I'm going to spend this time with my kids. And this is not procrastination. This is necessary recalibration for all of us, for the whole family, because that is important for my success as well. And it's the type of self-compassion that says, it's okay if I didn't write today because my family needed me, but I'm going to devote time to that tomorrow. Again, this is about embracing that self-love, giving ourselves grace as mamas to do the best that we can. And this type of self-compassion releases us from the guilt that we carry around, that heavy burden of feeling like we should always be doing more, being more, producing more. This is about embracing our feminine wisdom that knows that rest is not lazy, that knows that taking breaks is not weakness, that knows that being present with our kids is not a distraction from our work, but is also an essential part of our whole selves, because we are wearing many hats, and it's not, there's no way that we are going to be able to navigate a PhD journey in a way that we can constantly be producing, constantly be on, constantly be working, constantly be putting ourselves under all that pressure, because it doesn't work. We've got to show up for our kids. We've got to show up for our families. We cannot sustain those super high expectations. And yes, we are not about doing, substandard work. We are about doing quality work, but we are also aware that we need to show that self-compassion to ourselves, that we need rest, that we need to recharge our batteries, because we are doing a lot. We are doing a lot. And so really embracing that radical self-compassion is what we really need, and not more productivity hacks. Okay, so the next thing that we need instead of more productivity hacks is we need strategic support systems. So let me be really crystal clear about this. When I say strategic support systems, I'm talking about so much more than just childcare. I mean, yes, childcare is important. Believe me, I know that. I've got 3 kids from teenager to toddler, so I know how important childcare is. But what scholarly mamas really need is a network of other scholarly mamas who understand why we are doing what we are doing, why we are trying to juggle PhD life with motherhood, right? Who get that journey and get that experience. What you actually need is a group of scholarly mamas who get equally excited about your latest theoretical framework breakthrough and your child's first steps, or your teenager's performance at school, or your adult child's, promotion at work, or whatever you are celebrating in your child's life. You need a group of women who get that, as well as the successes in your academic journey. You really need mentors who respect that your path looks different and really value the unique perspective that you bring as a mama. This is so important. This is so important. A space where you can be your whole self and you don't have to apologize for having family commitments. You need people around you who can help you and encourage you when deadlines and family life are colliding. Because believe me, that will come. And this is why I've created our Scholarly Mamas community and all things Scholarly Mamas, right? We had recently, this last weekend, we had our first Scholarly Mamas Circle for 2025. And it was amazing how we just got it. It was a small, intimate group, but we did not have to explain much. We understood each other's journeys. We understood that we were approaching everything from a place of inspiration and encouragement rather than competition or judgment. And it was just feminine energy in action, building connections, supporting each other, and creating an atmosphere where we can be our whole selves. And this is what I want to bring to your Scholarly Mama journey, because you are too busy navigating this thing by yourself, feeling isolated, feeling alone, and we need to change that. Because as Scholarly Mamas, we don't need more productivity hacks. What we do need is strategic support systems. And I hope that the Scholarly Mamas community can be that for you. Feel free to join, feel free to sign up. We'd love to have you there. And the more we support each other, the more that I am in a position to facilitate this for all of you. It just brings us joy all round, fulfillment all round. After we had the Scholarly Mama Circle last weekend, the mamas were so inspired and felt so fulfilled and felt like it was exactly what they needed. And so if that sounds like you, please come over to Scholarly Mamas. We will love to have you there. So just to kind of bring this all together, because again, like I said, you don't have to look very far online to hear people talking about all the productivity tips and hacks and tricks and all of it. However, this is what I have to say to that. We open the doors to purposeful success when we stop apologizing for being mothers in academia, for being mothers on PhD journeys, and for being mothers who have chosen to pursue their scholarly ambitions. What we actually need as Scholarly Mamas is to start recognizing how motherhood actually enriches and enhances our scholarly work and journeys. So your capacity for nurturing does not make you a less serious academic. It makes you a more innovative, introspective one. Your ability to manage multiple needs, believe me, multiple personalities and energy levels makes you exceptionally qualified to handle complex research projects and concepts. So the next time you're tempted to, go on the hunt for your latest productivity app or sign up for another time management webinar, I want you to pause and I want you to ask yourself, is this what I really need in this very moment to move the needle forward? Is this what I need right now? Or do I simply need permission to finish my PhD the feminine way? Remember, you are not just working on a PhD here, right? You're not just working on a PhD here. You are raising kids who will grow up knowing that mamas, they're powerful too. They're intelligent too, and they're capable of amazing things as well. They're watching you turn chaos into creation. They're watching you juggle multiple demands and embrace your whole self. And they're watching you pursue your dreams while you stay true to your feminine essence. And that's worth so much more than all the productivity hacks in the world combined. So if this resonated with you, if what we've talked about resonates with you, please come join us inside our Scholarly Mamas community. We are a about to launch an 8-week writing retreat / program called Operation PhD Thesis. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, tune into last week's episode where I talk a little bit more about what this is, why I've called it Operation PhD Thesis. Operation PhD Thesis really focuses on how you can finish your thesis the feminine way. So we will dive deeper into all of these concepts I shared in this episode and more. And really it's about helping you write your first or next 10,000 words in just 8 weeks, but doing it the purposeful way. So remember, mama, it's not just about productivity. It's about purposeful progress, purposeful success that encompasses productivity, because productivity is important and we acknowledge that, but we look at it through a feminine lens. And we do that so that we can help you become Dr. So-and-so fill in the blanks without sacrificing what matters to you. So mama, until next time, I am sending you so much love and so much gratitude, and I cannot wait to see you in the next episode. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, please head over to mrsmummyphd.com or scholarlymamas.com. If you want to do your PhD well without sacrificing yourself or those you love dearest, then you need your hands on all the ways that we can work together to transform your journey of scholarly motherhood from one of overwhelm, disillusionment and burnout to one of scholarly joy and purposeful success. Make sure you head over to mrsmummyphd.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I cannot wait to work with you. Remember, mama, these are our journeys of becoming.